Hello and welcome to the May edition of the Dot Report. This month, we're covering a major breach involving the Canvas learning platform and the controversy surrounding how the incident was resolved. A coordinated Interpol operation targeting cybercrime networks across the Middle East and North Africa, and two separate supply chain incidents involving GitHub and Grafana Labs that exposed internal development environments and source code. Before we get into our stories this month, make sure to check out even more coverage in the podcast version of the Dot Report on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. Now, let's jump right in. A major breach involving the Canvas learning platform has raised serious questions about how organizations handle large-scale data theft and extortion events. The platform's parent company, Instructure, confirmed it reached an agreement with the attackers following a cyber attack that disrupted access for schools and universities during a critical academic period. The incident has been linked to the cybercriminal group known as Shiny Hunters, which claimed responsibility for exfiltrating large volumes of data tied to students, faculty, and the educational institutions themselves. Reports so far indicate the stolen information included personal identifiers, contact details, and internal platform data spanning millions of users. And in the aftermath, Instructure stated that the attackers had returned the stolen data and provided confirmation of deletion. However, the company did not explicitly confirm whether a ransom payment was made, leaving uncertainty around the terms of the agreement itself. That uncertainty is central to the controversy because security researchers note that in cases like this, organizations are often forced to choose between operational disruption and the risk of long-term data exposure. Even when data is returned, there's no reliable way to verify that copies weren't distributed elsewhere. And the broader concern is scale. When a platform like Canvas is compromised, the impact extends across thousands of institutions simultaneously, turning a single breach into a systemic disruption across the entire educational sector. This incident also highlights how education platforms have become high-value aggregation points for identity data, with student records, authentication data, and communication histories centralized in one single system. A single compromise can create downstream risk that extends well beyond the platform itself, including phishing and fraud campaigns that target the affected user specifically. Interpol has coordinated a major international law enforcement effort across the Middle East and North Africa, resulting in over 200 arrests tied to phishing, malware disruption, and online financial fraud. The operation, known as Operation RAMS, involves agencies across 13 countries working in parallel to dismantle cybercrime infrastructure operating across this region. The campaign ran over several months and focused on identifying and disrupting the systems behind large-scale fraud operations. Authorities seized more than 50 servers and uncovered thousands of victims connected to active campaigns involving phishing pages, banking malware, and credential theft operations. Beyond infrastructure takedowns, the investigation also revealed the scale and structure of the ecosystem itself. In some cases, individuals conducting the fraud were themselves victims of exploitation, including reports of forced labor linked to scam operations in parts of the region. The operation also relied heavily on collaboration with private sector threat intelligence organizations who provided visibility into infrastructure, domains, and malware activity tied to ongoing campaigns. That coordination allowed investigators to map relationships between operators, infrastructure providers, and victims across multiple jurisdictions. What stands out here is the shift in enforcement strategy. Rather than targeting isolated actors, the focus is increasingly being put on dismantling the infrastructure that enables cybercrime at scale, from phishing toolkits to hosting networks and command and control systems at large. The scale of coordination also reflects how cybercrime has evolved into a transnational business model. Modern fraud operations are rarely contained within a single country, and disruption efforts increasingly depend on sustained intelligence sharing across both public and private sectors to have a meaningful and lasting impact. GitHub has also confirmed a security incident this month involving unauthorized access to its internal development environment, resulting in the exposure of approximately 3,800 internal repositories. The breach was traced back to a malicious Visual Studio Code extension installed on a company device. According to investigators, the compromised extension provided attackers with access to sensitive developer data, including internal source code and related organizational resources. The activity was detected after anomalous behavior was identified within GitHub's internal systems, prompting an immediate investigation and containment effort. A threat group known as Team PCP has claimed responsibility, stating it exfiltrated internal code and attempted to monetize that stolen data. While GitHub has not confirmed the full attribution, the company has acknowledged the breach and confirmed that affected systems were isolated. Importantly, GitHub says there is no evidence right now that customer repositories or external enterprise environments were impacted. However, internal credential rotation and security audits were initiated as a precautionary measure following the incident. The entry point here highlights a growing supply chain risk emerging from developer tooling. Visual Studio Code extensions operate with broad permissions, often requiring access to local files, authentication tokens, and cloud credentials. So when compromised, they can provide attackers with direct visibility into both code and infrastructure workflows. This incident reinforces a broader trend, one in which developer environments are increasingly functioning as high-value targets, not just supporting systems. A single compromised endpoint can expose internal repositories and secrets and automation pipelines that underpin the production environments themselves. It also underscores how difficult visibility can be in modern development stacks, because even when organizations secure production systems, the compromise of a single developer machine can bypass those controls entirely by targeting the tools used to build and deploy the software. Following this, Grafana Labs confirmed that attackers gained unauthorized access to portions of its GitHub environment after obtaining a leaked access token. The breach allowed attackers to download internal code and attempt extortion, demanding payment in exchange for not releasing the stolen data. The company Grafana, however, says the incident was contained after the compromised token was identified and revoked, and Grafana stated further that there is no evidence of impact to customer environments, hosted services, or production systems, and that the intrusion was limited to internal repositories. Further investigation, however, suggests the attack may be connected to a broader supply chain campaign targeting developer environments and workflows. In particular, compromised automation tokens and exposed credentials have become a recurring entry point for attackers seeking access to internal codebases without directly targeting production infrastructure. The incident also underscores how sensitive developer infrastructure has become. GitHub repositories, build systems, and automation pipelines often contain privileged access to deployment systems and cloud environments. So when those credentials are exposed, attackers can move laterally without needing to exploit traditional vulnerabilities. Since the incident, Grafana has rotated credentials, reviewed access controls, and initiated a broader security audit of its development environment. The company also declined to pay the ransom demand, aligning with standard guidance that paying extortion actors does not guarantee data deletion or prevent further exposure. Because one of the key risks in cases like this is just persistence. Even after tokens are revoked, attackers may have already cloned repositories or extracted secrets that was embedded in the code. This makes full remediation dependent on long-term secret rotation and environment review rather than immediate containment alone. That's it for this month, so as always, thanks for watching. And remember, if you want more news from the Dot Report, you can hear these stories plus several more covered in our podcast report on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. I'm Andrew Mancini with Dot Security, and this has been the Dot Report. Browse safe out there, and we'll see you next month.